Hello, my name is Roxanne and I'm here with Dr. Oberg, and today we're going to talk about flexible instructional days and what they really are.
Roxanne, I appreciate the opportunity. So we are here today to talk about FID days, or flexible instructional days. We have the ability, during the course of this school year, I have the ability to call what's called a FID day. And that FID day, that flexible instructional day, allows me to allow our students and staff to conduct a normal school day, but online. As a school district, we are now one-to-one, K through 12. And so because of that, we have the ability using Google Classroom and the G Suite for education through Google to provide education to our students in their home. So on days where the weather is inclement, it could be anything from cold weather to, of course, snow, which typically around Western Pennsylvania is something that we face. I have the ability to call 5 FID days or flexible instructional days. This means that as a school, we would go completely remote learning on those days. Now how, Roxanne, that differs from the past is in the past when the FID day would be called, it was called only for cold weather. And in those instances, students have the ability to either decide to come on site as well as staff or to work from home. Moving forward, this year again with those 5 flexible instructional days, we will be completely remote learning.
Thank you. So my first question for you is, what weather situations would we use FID days for?
Good question. I have to be very judicious in these days we use the flexible instructional because we only, again, Roxanne, get 5. We also have built into our school calendar those days where it would allow for us to actually cancel school altogether. So there's really 2 options on any type of weather event day that I have, either to close school, those would be your traditional snow days, we have 3 of them into the calendar, or I have 5 FID days. And one of the things I want to make sure when that call has to be made is safety of our students and staff, right? So we had discussion prior to this about, do you drive? And you said, yeah, I absolutely drive. Many of the students that are working on this video do the same. So I think about you guys as I'm making that call. Do the weather conditions present challenges to being on the road safely? Do we have the ability for all of our students to have access to the instruction in their home if we do actually call FID day? So there's many things I take into account when either going with the FID day, which again would be like in the past, last year, many of you maybe remember our remote learning days, same concept, or canceling school altogether, because again, that is also an option. But ultimately, when I make a decision, I'm thinking about the safety, security of yourself, of all of our students, staff, that have to be on the roads on those days.
Okay, and to follow up with that question, how would you notify the families and staff of Mcguffey about a FID day?
Sure. So there's multiple ways we can do that. The very first that I would recommend all families do is go to our website. Whenever you look outside and see the weather is such that you think maybe there's a cause for either the cancellation occurring or a FID day, we will put a banner on the front of our main website on the home page. And actually on that banner, we're also going to have a link placed on there, so if you're not able to access the class itself, you can actually register your attendance using the banner. That's the first way. The second way, of course, traditionally is that morning we contact all of our local radio and TV stations so they're made aware. There'll be postings on our Facebook pages for each of the buildings. And again, I will send what's called a Blackboard 1 call that I think I've become famous for because I'm so chipper about 5:30 in the morning. But I'll make those calls as well to alert our families of what's happening on that day. Typically, my goal is to have a decision made by 5:30 in the morning on those days. The reason, again, is because of travel, and specifically in this case, it would be for our bus drivers. Many of them have to be on the road by a certain point, so I'm in contact with our Buildings and Grounds here, Mr. Craig McKee, as well as Mr. Mike Wilson is in charge of our transportation, and we're coordinating and looking at the conditions with our townships.
Next question for you is, how would the typical FID day of a high school student differ from that of an elementary student?
Very good. Actually, surprisingly, there's not going to be a lot of differences between an elementary student, middle school student, and high school student. All of our students, again, are one-to-one. meaning that every student has the ability to have their Chromebooks. One of the things that we have to make sure, and I say we, our building administrators, our teachers, is to make sure, especially at the earlier grades, K1, K1 and 2, oftentimes our students are not bringing their Chromebooks home. So we're going to make sure, as best as we can, that when the weather is going to call for it, that we have our students take those Chromebooks home. I know a lot of our high school, middle school students take that home already, so that's one of the things that may be a little bit different, but in fact, when it comes to following the remote bell schedule, that will be again posted on our website and be shared out through our buildings and through our teachers. The students will pretty much follow the same schedule through the course of the day. There will be a combination of what's called synchronous and asynchronous learning. Synchronous meaning real time. We will be with your teacher at a specific time of the day, and you'll be live with your teacher and with other students in the class using Google Classroom and Google Meet. And then the second part of that particular period or that day, there'll be a combination of both the synchronous but the asynchronous, where you'll be working oftentimes on your own. So there'll be a combination of the two. But again, there's going to be some minor differences, but ultimately the goal is to provide the best instruction that we can.
Another question for you is, what are your expectations for the students at Mcguffey to meet for attendance and work completion goals?
Attendance first. There will be multiple ways in which the student can log their attendance. The first, of course, as I said, when we, and I call it Fid Day, one of 5 days, the students will see on a banner that we'll place on the homepage or website, where they can go and click on a Google form, which will then allow them to log attendance. That's the first way, the primary way that I recommend all families, all students to log their attendance. But also, of course, just like you would, like we're in class right now, when you go into your classroom, your teacher will be able to log the fact that you're in attendance virtually using the Google Meet. For those families that, and unfortunately in our areas we know, still sometimes there'll be situations where families may not be able to access the classroom, right? So they can't see the website necessarily because they don't have internet access, and certainly you cannot get to the Google Classroom itself. So in those cases, we'll also provide a phone number for your building so you can call and let us know that you're in attendance, but at that time not able to access your classroom. And then the second question was?
Expectations for work completion.
Expectations. Actually very similar in that sometimes some of our students do not have access to the Google Classroom because of the internet. Every student has up to 3 days, consecutive days, to make up any work they were not able to complete.
Okay, and for my last question, I just wanted to ask you if there was any other information you wanted to add to help us better understand Fid Days.
I think the last thing, Roxanne, I'd like to share is, again, the thought process. So when making that decision, because we only have 5 days during the course of a school year, I really am taking into account, and I want all of our families to really understand it, that my goal is to make sure that our students are safe, our staff is safe, and if I'm going to make ever an error in judgment when it comes to weather conditions, it's always going to be on the side of student safety. Knowing that, and knowing the fact that we also have 3 days built into our calendar to allow for a quote-unquote snow day, I'll take all that into consideration ultimately when making that final decision.
Okay, well, I'd just like to thank you again for taking time out of your day to make this video, and I'll see you soon. Thank you.
And I want to thank you and actually everyone that's behind the scenes for this video, Mr. McCune's class. I look forward to making many more videos with you and with this team. Thank you.